great spring training vibes tempered by injuries to two huge pieces to the Chicago Cubs team. We're going to talk about it next.
Are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy, and this is Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please support the show and be a part of the Locked On Cubs community by following and subscribing on all audio platforms. And you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Well, the first spring training game was Saturday, but the news has been off the field this weekend as we record here on a late Sunday morning for a Monday episode. And thank you whenever and wherever you may be listening. But Seiya Suzuki and Justin Steele were each scratched from their first starts. Suzuki scratched before Saturday's spring opener with an oblique injury. He's going to get an MRI on Monday. And Justin Steele was not able to toe the rubber before Sunday's game as he was scratched with arm fatigue. Two players who are highly important to the future of the Cubs, Sam, and I know there is certainly a level of concern.
Absolutely. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Our job on this show is to keep it real. And I know you're a little less concerned than I am because you're Mr. Optimistic all the time and everything's great, hunky-dory, and God bless you for that. But look, the Suzuki, let's start with Suzuki. It is a fact at this point that there are injury concerns over him. There were before yesterday's news came out. We've talked about it extensively on this show. It's why I said I don't care if they lose every spring training game 80-0, as long as they come out of it healthy. And Suzuki last year missed over like almost a month and a half with an ankle injury. He's a slow healer. He's had injury problems in Japan. And the oblique, as you know, Matt, is really a big deal for an offensive player. It's a big injury. Now, look, I'm not saying at all he's not going to be ready by opening day. I'm not saying that this is a huge thing. If the levels are, when you hear news like that, oh, don't worry about it at all. Hey, let's see what happens. Concerned and panicked. I'm at concerned. That's the level that I'm at, especially with that news. The blessing in disguise is it probably means he doesn't participate in the WBC, which, get him just some extra time and things like that. But Matt, I have no doubt that he's going to be ready by opening day, but I hope it's not one of those Chris Bryant type of things where it affects him and he's hitting 180 in April and we find out later on he was playing through some pain, right? There's just a lot of issues with that, and I get very nervous about those things. As far as Steele goes, it sounds like the reporting on that, just from Megan, how do I pronounce her last name?
Montemurro.
Megan Montemurro. It just sounded like that was a little bit less concerning from the Cubs brass. They're just going to give him some days. He's expected to make a start here shortly. Like you said off air, maybe he didn't ramp up quick enough and overdid a session, but still, young pitcher through the most amount of innings he did last year. Arm fatigue before his first start. And again, it's not leg fatigue. It's what he uses for his job is a bit concerning. Right. The biggest takeaway that I got today that has me worried, and I'll feel better hopefully tomorrow, is that they're doing an MRI on Suzuki. That's just like, I was hoping that it was like, yeah, it's very slight soreness. It's not something we're concerned about. We're just being precautionary. He'll be in the lineup by Monday or Tuesday. The fact that they didn't give a report and they're doing an MRI tomorrow makes me a bit nervous. But yeah, that's me. I'm a nervous guy.
Yeah, I think the news for me is definitely there's multiple layers of concern, information, reaction that I'm trying to work through, and I think the Suzuki injury is a far larger concern for me at this point than Steele.
Sure.
I think, obviously the oblique is critical to really multiple baseball movements, but especially hitting. And
see this, Matt?
Yeah, I do. That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll
Let's hit it.
try
That's
to
swinging.
teach that to my players this week.
No,
First
then
first first day Monday.
you're gonna be teaching them to roll over to the left side
I hope not.
because that's what I do.
I'm starting to get concerned with Suzuki again,
Yeah.
and I think for me it's a little bit of a battle of, as the host of this show now as well, like, in addition to being a diehard fan, is it fair to criticize someone's availability?
Yeah.
And my instinct is to say, yes, it is.
Absolutely.
And he missed a large chunk of time last year as he was adjusting to the States. All signs point to him, doing well with that off the field. So now it's a matter of him getting comfortable inside the lines. And, to be scratched from the first game, to not hear a peep after the game, and to have an MRI, 2 days later,
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely very conflicted about this. And I'm not as optimistic as I thought I would be. I'm not going to try to paint a blue and red rosy canvas right here,
Yeah.
because the fact is,
Thank God for that, because
Seiya was going to be, or is, a very anticipated player in 2023 and beyond. He has 4 more years on his deal. So
yeah.
the calendar with both guys is on their side. The calendar is on our side. But for this to happen right away, the timing is just unfortunate.
Yeah, and let me
I
say
think
one thing.
Justin
Okay.
Steele,
Yeah, go ahead.
my guess is he did a throwing. I mean, if he didn't do a throwing program entering Sloan, that's irresponsible.
Male practice.
My guess is he did a throwing program entering the spring, and then he did at least one live BP because we saw the videos last week, and maybe he overcooked it. The combination of that runway into the we first, faced live hitters.
Sure.
And that's not unusual. So after he plays catch in a few days, that's when we really have to zoom in on,
Right.
okay, how is he feeling with the arm? Can he throw another live BP that will then put him in a game for the first time? February 26th as we record, I think that's why my concern meter is lower, but I am a little more worried than I thought I would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy birthday to my dad, by the way.
Oh yeah, happy birthday.
February 26th. The one thing with Suzuki is, and I discussed it on this show, when you pack on a lot of muscle quickly, sometimes this does happen. And so maybe he just needs a little bit of an adjustment, because a lot of his injuries before this were lower body stuff. So maybe he just needs to adjust and stretch more and whatever, because he just got a lot stronger. And I said, I'm not usually a huge fan of that. Especially if you're somebody trying to stay away from injuries. But again, this is all speculation. I don't have my medical degree. But, your point on Suzuki is fully fair, Matt. For example, I mean, it applies to anything in life. Like, Suzuki's a talented guy. I try a lot. I try really hard to bring a lot to this show and bring my talents to this show. If I'm only available half the shows, that's not really helpful to anybody, right?
Right.
He needs to put in 140 to 150 games this year for us to really start to feel good about this acquisition. I think I feel better about the actual talent than you do, but to say that that it's not concerning that he's an injury prone guy. And by the way, I hate to I don't want to kill any bad vibes, but so is Horner. Horner has that issue. These guys have to stay away from the IL. Now, the Cubs are a much deeper team this year than they were last year. So in a vacuum, it's not going to crush. If Suzuki, gosh forbid, were to miss, be on the IL to start the year, it's not a season ender. But we want this guy to become a really high level major leaguer, and to do that, he has to be on the field. So concerning. Kind of ruined my vibes yesterday. When you texted me, I was at a work event for most of the day. And then waking up this morning and seeing the Steele news, I almost kind of wanted to cancel my dad's birthday party tonight.
Wow.
But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, or stay in bed, right?
Yeah, no. And, I got a lot to do today. And, to say that I'm upset would be an understatement.
There was baseball played on Saturday. We're going to break out the notepad and go over some of our first impressions coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Are you looking for something that's healthy but actually tasty to help you through your day? Well, how about a Built Bar covered in 100% real chocolate? Unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't need to wait around anymore to get a box. For a while, we've been talking about ordering at built.com, but now you can also get Built Bars at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. There's 4-bar boxes in the store, cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. So if you're close to a Walmart or Sam's Club, run in and grab a box of our Built Bar's hit flavors, or go to built.com to try a Built Bar today. Welcome back into Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're in your ears on the audio side, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. And excited to be with everybody for 5 episodes a week now moving forward. The Cubs played a baseball game, Sam, on Saturday. We could go about this several different ways. I know we have observations from broadcast to actual gameplay to prospects.
Rough day for Marquee.
And things like that. So, it was nice to see the A team of Boog, JD, and Taylor for Marquee. I was able to catch 3 innings on the television side before I turned it over to Alex Cohen and Ron Coomer on the 670 The Score app. And would you like to start with Marquee? I know you sent over a couple observations.
Well, but my first impression and my
first impression real quick was some of the cameras they had a tint similar to the color of your shirt. It's like a yellow tint.
My first impression is that if you wore a beanie and AirPods every episode, I'd be all for it. Would be my first impression. I kind of feel like I'm doing a show with Slim Shady, but you look great. You know what I mean? Man, it just pops off the screen. Look, can I talk baseball first before Marquee?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
It was just first on my notes. But
well, yeah, because Marquee didn't know how many outs there were.
Boy.
I would say, no real major takeaways from one baseball game. Sampson, obviously, we've talked about it on this show. He's going to have a really bad spring for Wisniewski.
Oh, he was brutal yesterday.
Yeah, and he did. I thought PCA looked good. He had a couple nice swings to left field that were outs. I thought he looked good in the box. Just getting a first look at him, was probably really nice to see there. Little concerned with Morel. Just it's early days, and people on Twitter were like, "Hey, Sam, it's the first game." I said, "Guys, look, I'm not saying that he's going to do this all the time, but his issue last year was swing and miss, particularly swing and miss in the zone." Yeah. And then yesterday, all he did was go over 3 with 3 Ks and a walk and swing and miss in the zone. Like you can't swing and miss at that rate and be a big leaguer. So that was a bit concerning, but overall, it's fun. It was good to watch. Bodie had a long home run. Wisdom got on base. Davis looked fine. Like everybody looked fine. Why don't you go with your baseball, and then I'll talk about the network that was just a 0 yesterday.
Well, Horner, Mancini, and Mervis didn't record an out, I do believe.
Yeah, and we've talked about it on the show, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I really hope Horner doesn't lead off, but I might be losing that battle.
Yeah, I think so. Good to see Mervis out there. I know he's starting Sunday's ball game. I think hitting 3rd or 4th.
He looked good.
Horner and Mancini each went 2 for 2, had some nice contact. Just noticed, which I'm not surprised, but now seeing him every day, I think it's going to be like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Just Dansby Swanson's smoothness. Yeah. And him and Horner recorded an early double play over to Hosmer, which was nice to see. I thought Stroman was overall pretty sharp. Struck out the first guy he faced and then got in a jam, but got out of it with that double play and then went 1, 2, 3 in the second frame. And one of the highlights for me was Also Mark Leiter Jr. had a scoreless inning. And
Oh,
then
I
just
noticed
wanted
that. I noticed that.
Yeah. I just wanted to share that in the 2 or 3 innings I did see on TV for the entire second inning, I was I was on a phone call with you,
Yes.
which I did the entire innings play by play.
Yes, you did.
And as Jan Gomes was walking to the dish, basically he was not even in the batter's box yet. Bases loaded, no outs. You predicted he was going to ground out to short into a double play. And 4 pitches later, that did happen.
It's
So I just wanted to give you some credit for that.
destructive.
It was
Has
a
to be
fun
better.
call.
He has to be better in those spots in the season because he's going to find himself in those spots. Sack fly, force out, can't ruin an
Healthy
inning.
fly, yeah.
Yeah. So Marquis, it's funny. We actually ended up complimenting each other perfectly because I went to Nick's, and I watched the maybe innings 4 or 5 through the rest of the game there.
Wow, yeah.
So I covered the TV and then I did the radio while you were doing the TV.
Right.
Shout out Alex Cohen, by the way. I thought he was tremendous.
He was good.
He's the radio guy. In the 5th inning, was the 5th inning the inning they scored all the runs?
Yeah, 5th or 6th.
Yeah. They had 1 out on the scoreboard the whole time when there was none. The count was consistently wrong. And
Wow.
look, it's spring training for everybody, but get somebody in the production truck, wake him up, get the donut powder off of his chest.
Come on.
And tell somebody that there's a problem. I mean, I'm watching the game. I said to Nick, I go, what?
No.
There's no outs, right? He goes, yeah, there's no outs. There's been 1 up there for 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, I didn't. I thought there was definitely some things to be desired from the first broadcast. I really can't get over that yellow tint on the camera. It was very
How about
strange.
this? How about this? One of my favorite, and this might not be a Marquee problem. It could be a Sloan Park problem. But my favorite part about spring training is seeing where the young guy's velocity is. There was no radar gun.
Yeah, no radar gun. I wonder if that's a Sloan Park thing.
Well, that needs to be fixed because Leiter looked like he was throwing about a mile or two a little slow. I want to see where everybody's velo is. That's a huge part of the spring, Matt. That's a huge part of the spring for pitchers.
Actually, I could pretty certainly confirm it is a ballpark thing because there was no game day on the app either.
Yeah.
The game day was shut off.
Yeah, so they need to fix that.
So it is the park. So that's Sloan Park. That's the Cubs.
Yeah, that's got to be
Cubs
fixed. You have 17,000 people there for a spring training game, but they'd like to know how hard some of these guys are throwing.
Yeah, great crowd. Just
amazing
over 16K, which is awesome.
A record.
I drove my dad to the airport this morning. He might give us a live report this week, provided he recovers from a cold that he has. I was only able to stay there about 2 or 3 innings yesterday.
And by the way, I'm assuming hopefully you were able to catch one of the great comebacks in college basketball history.
Yeah, was that phenomenal? Iowa Hawkeyes. Wow.
I watched that when I got home.
And Marquee didn't have a K-zone box, which again might be related to the cameras aren't on at Sloan.
Yeah, I don't mind
but I
that.
actually like that. I hope that
I don't
sticks
mind
around.
I don't mind that as much. Look, it was a really nice afternoon.
Yeah, it was.
Just watching the game.
Baseball is back.
And you can see the anticipation and excitement, man. I mean, they broke a Cactus League record for attendance.
You're right. There is excitement.
That's fun. It's really fun.
Without a doubt, player.
I just want, because I know people are going to comment, Sam's never happy. Sam's like Larry David. Sam's a cynic. Sam's a pessimist. All true. But I don't think I'm crazy to say that I would really, I'm not a little bit concerned that arguably our most important pitcher and position player are hampered by injury before March 1st.
One thing that Marquee did do well is put up the new pitch clock in the score bug in the upper left. I thought that was really nicely done. And we're going to give our first takeaways of the pitch clock coming up next.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this.
Welcome back to Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day.
I'm passionate about this.
Great to be with you all on a Monday as we get another week started. And we're in baseball mode as games are being played. So the new rules in baseball, Sam, I did realize the significance of them. I guess just I have a slight disinterest in having a dialogue about them, whether it's pitch clock, pitch comm, bases, pickoffs. I think those are the main ones. Oh, and shifting.
Mhm.
But the pitch clock was front and center this weekend. I read that the pitch clock in the major league ballparks on March 30th are not going to be in view,
Correct.
television view.
Right.
They are now, which okay. But I know there's some baseball ramifications that this has in your mind.
Well, there's two perspectives of it. There's the Cubs perspective, which is absolutely tremendous. This is going to impact games, especially early in the season, and it's not going to impact the Cubs because the Cubs have fast workers. And credit to you, credit to me, and credit to Jed, because we've talked about that extensively on this show. Marcus Stroman is going to use the pitch clock to his advantage. When Kyle Hendricks comes back, he loves that, right?
Right.
It's going to help the Cubs. Like a team like the White Sox, Lance Lynn works slow. Kopech works slow. That's going to be an adjustment. So from the Cubs' perspective, that's going to help them. From a baseball fan's perspective, and I know you disagree, and I want you to disagree with me because it upsets me that you disagree. I don't love it because, and call me old school, call me a baseball purist, I love the game of baseball. So if the games go 3.5 hours, I enjoy that. That's my free time. Now, listen. There's one thing I don't like about long games, and that's pitching changes in the 4th, 5th inning of a 1-1 game, and that's not going to change anyway. But having my favorite sport and my favorite leisurely activity feel rushed it isn't great for me. Those 4.5, 4-hour games in the early 2000s between the Red Sox and Yankees were some of the greatest baseball memories I've ever had because they were tremendous and they were tough outs. I'm sorry, I'm going on a mini rant here because everybody's bragging that these games are 2.5 hours. Awesome. Congrats. So when the Cubs play at 6:40 and the game ends at 8:40, what are you going to do for that extra hour? You know what I was going to do? I'm just going to watch baseball. So it makes
we're going to come on the air.
Yeah, it just makes no difference to me if the game's 3 hours. Like I love baseball.
Love baseball that much.
I think the people out there that are just, praying for a shorter game, maybe you have an attention span issue. I love the game of baseball. Now, listen, 5 hours is egregious, pitching changes and stuff like this. Look, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying I don't have a problem with long baseball games because baseball from April until September is my happy place. So the longer my happy place goes during the day, it's fine. When the Cubs game ends, I look around my place. There's nobody here. There's nobody to talk to. I just go, okay, well, let's see if there's another baseball game on. So I don't understand what the rush is in these games. If you want to shake off a couple times, and by the way, lastly, I'm sorry, I know I'm going long.
Hey, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
You need to stop apologizing for going long.
Yeah. If we lose a game this year because one of our hitters isn't ready or one of our pitchers takes too long in the 9th inning of a game, there will be physical ramifications.
Well, that's why it's so aggressive right now and the umpire's being buzzed because then it's going to be like, oh, this is a warning.
Exactly.
A spring trading game Saturday ended on an automatic strike. That's not going to happen starting March 30th.
And I'm not okay with that.
Right. It's concerning. So we've used concern a lot on this show today. So
that's got to be in the title.
I know that maybe the thumbnail. So I know that I don't think it's automatic. Like, oh, baseball games are going to be 2.5 hours now, because early indications are good. We already see data from the first couple days, and games are between 220 and 240 for the most part. But then you had a game like the Cubs-Giants. There was pitching changes. There was errors. There was a lot of runs scored. You still might eclipse that 3-hour mark. So I think it's going to ebb and flow. I do think baseball needed a pace of play change. And one of the ways to do that is to have this clock.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm not a huge fan of the clock. I also am not a fan of just like the actually having it there, but the fact that it's going to increase pace, I'm going to pay for that.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
You like a good you like a good 2.5 hour game. Let me ask you this:
How come in the box, Machado?
How come nobody whines when college football games go 3.5 hours?
Well, that's a great question. They're consistently 3.5 hours.
Yeah, well, there's a commercial after every play.
Yeah, and breaks are 3 minutes 40 seconds. And I know because I saw that timer at Memorial Stadium this
Yeah.
past October.
When the Illini defeated Iowa 9-6.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's pretty
One of the
much all I
worst-
have to say about that.
One of the worst college football events I've
That was
actually ever attended.
one of the always the worst game I've ever been to.
Yeah. No, I look, again, from a Cubs perspective, though, it's going to be really good. Like, Tyone
Yeah,
can
because
work
they've
quickly.
already in a way had a pitch clock.
Smiley works quickly, so they should be
Yeah,
able to.
Is he healthy?
They should be able to
holy
steal
smokes.
No, they should be able to steal some games early on with that if they could field a roster.
Okay. All right. Well, a good show to lead off the week here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to
You're
hit
welcome.
that subscribe button for Locked On Cubs on YouTube and smash the like button on all your favorite Locked On Cubs content, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more on the audio side. And we are going to do a mailbag this week. I just don't know when. Don't know when that's going to be budgeted for because there's so much news. But I already copied over some of the questions into a rundown. And so you could keep sending those in. And maybe we could do a bigger one, maybe like midweek or something. But we are going to do a mailbag this week. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now, for the first time, I want to introduce you for a second listen option, Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Locked On Fantasy Baseball show is back. You can win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. I'm excited to eventually bring Matt and Dom on for a crossover sometime in March. Locked On Fantasy Baseball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.